Hi and welcome to another episode of Chennai AI Community Podcast. Let's explore the world of artificial intelligence through interesting conversations. Many emerging technologies have come, let's say blockchain, cloud, and governments across the world has reacted and made regulations and framework. But what's happening now with AI is completely different. For example, in India, we have an India AI mission. Like Malaysia has their own AI office and EU has their own AI Act. So today's session, what we are going to cover is AI governance in detail. So with that note, I would like to welcome our guest, Nidhi Sudhan. She is recognized among the global 100 top brilliant AI ethics professional in the world at New York. She comes with 20 years of rich media experience, and she has worked globally in countries like UAE, UK, Greece, and many more. And she's also the co-founder of CDF, Citizen Digital Foundation, a non-profit organization incubated at IIM Bangalore. And also we were part of the India AI conference last month, where we participated as AI experts, sharing our inputs on how we can have the AI guidelines and policy for the country. This was an event organized by India AI and UNESCO and Government of Telangana. So that's how we met. And with that note, I would like to welcome Nidhi. Hi Nidhi. Thanks for joining.
Thanks Yousef. Thanks for having me. Great pleasure.
We would love to hear a lot about AI governance and ethics from you. And so Nidhi, how about you tell about your journey? So how you got into this field?
So I started out in the media. I have been in television, advertising, radio, and my last stint was in football in data analysis. And throughout the course of my media career, I've understood the deep role of communications and information technology in influencing thought, influencing opinion, shaping how belief systems work. And eventually when information got digitalized and all these mediums are digitalized, the scale and influence grew much larger.
Okay.
So it was quite natural for me as a career progression to be in this space. And then at this stage in my career, after about 20 years or so, it made sense to kind of get into the deeper systems thinking part of it, which kind of threw light on how often technology has certain incentives, and people who build technologies have certain incentives and may not always benefit the public as such. So that's how I started an NGO, Citizen Digital Foundation. And we prioritize the importance of technology working for people. So CDF is about making technology safer, responsible, and equitable in India. That is our core mission. So we want to remove all the hurdles that come in the way of that and make sure that people benefit maximum from technology.
So let's talk about the governance part. So for our audience, what is AI governance?
So governance, if I am to give a simple example, let me just take the example of motor vehicles, right? We today are able to benefit from the technology of automobiles because there is a system in place.
Yeah.
As users or as drivers of automobiles, we need to learn how to ride the automobile, learn the road rules, the responsibility of a driver, understand how road signages work, and get a license to be driving a vehicle. On the other side, there is a whole system that has ensured that the vehicles that you drive are built safely, pass certain safety standards, and they follow the regulations around pollution and other aspects. These are all done by the government as well as the businesses or the manufacturers of the vehicles. So we arrived at this space today after a lot of evolution. When cars first came out, all these systems were not in place. That's the process of governance. So any car manufacturer today follows a set of systems which makes the technology of automobiles easier and safer for people to drive. And that is what we're talking about when it comes to AI or emerging digital technologies, to make sure that there are systems in place so that anytime a startup or a tech business is developing a technology or using AI to build a new product, it benefits all their stakeholders maximum, and it does not cause a lot of harm or reduces a lot of harm that is existing.
Yeah, that's a wonderful explanation. So basically, checks and balance has to be in place when any industry when starting out. Yes, it might not have those many checks and balances, but as the monopoly and many other things starts kicking in, and yes, okay, so that's AI governance. So what about AI ethics? If you can give us some examples of what an ethical software means.
Thanks, Yousef. That's a slightly broader area. It comes from the philosophy of ethics, and it often feels like a heavy word, especially when people are told that you should now be ethical about your product. People feel very burdened. What do you mean? I'm not building ethical products, so what? But the idea is that often market incentivizes certain aspects for the purpose of increasing profits, and often businesses prioritize those aspects about making money, making profits over some of the aspects of the customer's interest. Of course, you're not building products that would hurt customers, but sometimes things like, let me give you an example.
Kind of exploiting also, right? Sometimes it is exploitory in nature.
That becomes intentional. Exploitation is intentional, and it's done by bad actors with a bad intent.
Yeah.
But a business with a proper intent and good intent can still end up exploiting, because it's called the unintended consequences of any large or potent technology.
Okay.
Because
like example, if you can share
so
one.
let's take, it has happened when the printing press first came out, it has happened when radio first came out. These are all used for bad intentions as well. But let's take a ride hailing app, for example. They want to maximize their usage. More and more people should download the app and use it as much as possible, and a developer in a company is given a metrics to make sure that that engagement is constantly rising. So from the developer's point of view, they may incorporate aspects of using the data from the device, using the user's gender, using the time at which they are using the particular app, to increase the pricing for a certain kind of audience. So differential pricing is offered for different people based on their usage and device information. If you ask the developer, they're not doing anything wrong.
Correct,
they're doing exactly what the organization's KRAs have set as a goal, and they're excelling in doing that. So ethically, that is fair for them. However, if you put the same developer in the customer's shoes, they will feel wrong.
So basically, if let's say somebody is having 5% battery in their phone, and they are, at that time they are trying to book, the app might show a higher pricing because they know that they are in an urgency.
And the customer won't know that this is
happening. They have not been informed.
You and I might be booking the same location at the same time, but only because my battery is a little lower and I'm more likely to make a decision quicker.
Correct.
I am shown a different pricing. Many organizations have denied that, but however, these dark patterns exist as part of the design in the system, and often consumers don't know about it. Now, so coming back to your earlier question about AI ethics then, is that a lot of times when we look at ethical AI, people are talking about the meta or normative ethics side of it, which is that we should not do harm. Our product should do maximum good, which is a very easy and broad statement to make. But applied ethics is what I was talking about earlier. When you are in the developer's shoes, you are right, but when you are in the consumer's shoes, you feel wronged by the same product idea. So that is what we need to factor in, and governance frameworks help with that.
So any other example you can say for the ethics where it has gone wrong or maybe misused?
Sure. Actually, the most relatable example is social networks and social media, for example, right? All social networks started with the idea of connecting people. The idea is to bring people together. But the developers and the products metrics over a period of time have evolved into daily user engagement, monthly user engagement, which is all fair, but over a period of time, it's understood that behavioral science has proven that it's the most violent, most gory that often leads to engagement. Anything that makes people divided and angry and upset about something is most engaging. So what happens is we have fed content through our timelines which are highly dividing. You and I will see different perspectives on the same topic, speaking to our biases, speaking to our belief systems, even through comment section. So the most recent comments you don't see, you often see the most optimized comments or most viewed comments.
So let's say you and me both are watching same video. So if you can give an example.
Let's say I'm watching a video of a woman coming back from work late at night. I will see comments on the same post saying, you go girl, you're hustling it, the world go round. Those kinds of positive, supportive comments. And I'll be like, yeah, that's right. I totally relate with her. You, on the other hand, if you're watching the same video on your phone, you might see comments like, see, this is how women invite trouble.
This is the same video. It's not different video.
No.
Okay.
And let's forget gender and religion and those kinds of wars. If you look at even things like, let's say you like dosha and I like idli, you and I will never agree on why you can also eat idli and I can also eat dosha. We'll always see comments about how dosha eaters are the best people on earth, and I will see how idli eaters are the best people
So
on earth.
polarizing doesn't happen just by placing the different content, but the same content with different comments.
Comments also.
It has gone to another level now.
And
Okay.
comment section that you see.
Yeah.
And that will make more people who
Correct.
think like that to comment like that on,
So
on
the
post.
whole idea of rational thinking goes out of window then. Like we need to see the different perspective to understand what is the other side. That option is gone.
You brought up a great point. There's this book by Maria Ressa, who's a Nobel laureate. She speaks about how in reality we all have a shared reality. That is the truth and that doesn't change. But through the information systems that we consume, those realities are all different for us. So what is the truth is getting warped all the more. And therefore we are all becoming very identity centric, and we are not working together as a society and agreeing on things.
That's a dangerous thing. So now coming to AI frameworks and governance. So what is, like, if you can just explain what is a framework, what are the guidelines, like for anyone, just to give an example, you can name one of the framework.
Sure. So given how this is an emerging space, frameworks are essentially guiding structures that help a small startup or a big business establish or put certain systems in place to avoid a lot of the unintended consequences. They cannot erase everything. Nobody will score 100% on all the metrics that are there. It's just to give a leader, a business leader, the idea that these are the kind of things I need to eventually put in place. These are the brakes, seat belts, airbags that needs to be introduced in my product so that my customer has a safer experience, enjoys their ride in the car that I'm making, and also develops trust in my company that I will provide them a safe and enjoyable experience. That is what a framework essentially does. The framework will not tell you exactly what needs to be done in your context, but it will help you ask the right questions.
So if, let's say, there's a startup founder, AI startup founder particularly, and he or she is building a new product.
Yeah.
It's a very lean team. They have like probably bootstrapped and have a 4 to 5 member, which is the reality. A lot of startups operate in this way. What are the guidelines, if you can walk through some points, what are the checks and balances they can do?
So fundamentally, all startups will recognize that in their tech development process, there are 4 stages: planning, development, deployment, and measurement and monitoring of your product. Each of these stages, you have different systems to set in. And each of these stages is driven by the one purpose of your product and your company. What is the fundamental purpose of your product needs to be defined and set in stone. Because eventually, if the lure of increased profits is going to cause mission drift, if you're going to drift away from your mission, then obviously you will lose trust from different stakeholders, employees, customers, vendors, everyone. So if your purpose is clear and you make sure that every metric meets that, then that is the fundamental thing. At the planning stage, I completely know and understand how a lean startup functions. You may not be able to hire diverse teams at first, but if you're building a product for a certain community or a certain kind of audience, whatever that community and audience is, if you can get the insight from them into your product building process, it's important. If you can hire people who represent that community or group or customer group, great. If not, can you conduct a research among them and collect the insight and information in the form of data and keep going back to them through testing and various other...
So, for example, if somebody is building a product for disabled people, if somebody in the team they have with disability, then they are getting constant feedback, they're going to get constant high quality input, and obviously it's going to be good for them as well. Like so, okay. So this is what it means basically to inclusion, if possible, have it in the team, or at least make sure you take efforts to, ask those representations through surveys or whatever mediums, interviews, and keep them in the loop while you're building, so that you build the right product which is there. Okay.
Absolutely. And also then as a business leader, then you know that this is a necessary step towards governance. This year I don't have the budget to do that. My valuation is done, my pitches are done. For my next funding round, I will include one aspect into each of these stages, which is a safety and compliance aspect, and pitch it to my VC. So that they also understand that while I'm developing a cutthroat product, I'm also ensuring the safety and regulation and governance bit of it. So that's at the planning stage.
So let's talk about the data stage.
Yeah.
So a lot of the LLMs, they have their own source of data. They're built with certain data. For Indian context, if somebody is wanting to build a solution for healthcare in India, so what is your thought? Like what they can do?
That's such an important one. Often when we, especially in the context of generative AI, we often end up using US built foundational models, which serve as chatbots, which serve as AI that is reading radiology reports and things like that, but they have been trained on US data, which often creates a problem because it has hallucination problems, and B, it is not contextualized to our requirement. Now, that does not mean we can suddenly build a foundational model in India, although that work is still happening. But if you are in the healthcare business, if it's possible for you to partner with hospitals or even the government to work with existing patient data while ensuring complete privacy and informed consent protocols are being followed, to make sure that that data is used to help your readings of the patient's condition, which then working alongside a doctor will be able to provide a proper solution which aids the healthcare workers to provide proper solutions.
Makes sense. So basically for the market which we are building, you need to have that data. So it's not like to make work easy, get some data and get going, because the end result will get affected with that.
Absolutely. Let me give you an example on this. There was one study on how there was an ML tool that was developed to detect skin cancer with 93% accuracy. And immediately it got shipped across to various countries because it has 93% accuracy. One, the problem with that is, what about the false negatives and false positives as well? Other than that, when it was dug deeper, it was found out that that model was trained on Caucasian skin. So the 93% accuracy is only on white white-skinned people. So if you use the same tool in Asia, it won't have 93% accuracy, but you rely on that with that same trust already.
So so how about like bias, or generally startups are in pressure and they want to get the product out soon. What do you think about how they have to balance this from the guidelines perspective? What are the suggestions?
So all of us have bias. We cannot get rid of bias, but we can mitigate its propagation and that leading to discriminatory practices. So again, governance protocols help identify systems bias, either through technical methods or having people in the team who can call it out, which is where human in the loop is a great approach to deploying any AI software. When you have an AI model, let's say a chatbot trained on a specific foundational model, doling out advice on, let's say, skincare, would it have a colorism bias? We may not know. Even the people who are using it within the company may not know, because we all have that bias. Colorism is very much present in India. So when you want to have it benefit Indians, you will ensure that these checks and balances are in place and those questions are there. Another example is in HR. We use LLMs for, let's say, performance evaluation. Performance evaluation in general has a lot of gender bias as such. And LLMs tend to do the same output through that. So then bringing human in the loop is where you can address that to some extent. So if your HR manager is going to only rely on an LLM output to do a performance evaluation, that becomes problematic. You need to have a person step in and see whether it has been
So generally now the role of like AI data trainer, what they normally do is like, I think that's what you're exactly saying, that the response from the LLM has to be taken and the human in the loop should evaluate the response and feed it back. So that they say this is this is the wrong response, this is the right response, so that it is trained properly with the right responses.
100%. That is where. So
human in the loop, simple.
Absolutely. So that reinforcement training can happen in that contained environment.
Correct.
It cannot
Yeah.
be something that is opened out to entire public,
Yeah.
because then it can be gamed in various ways.
Correct.
But excellent example. Yeah.
So any startup who's in a rush to roll the product out, if they go out without doing, taking so much effort to do this human in the loop, and they say now user you do it.
Yeah.
Okay, they give it a thumbs up and thumbs down.
Yeah.
Then it's going to cause implications, because there could be very severe consequences as well. We have seen the recent example where one of the, I don't want to name, but one of the models disagreed to shut down itself. Right.
Yes.
It these kind of, and blackmailing and many other things happen. So we shouldn't let products go out, but have the human in loop take that extra effort to retrain it and put it out. So that's what the guidelines is about.
And another approach that startups can factor when they don't have the wherewithal to publish the whole thing is sandboxing. They can first test it in a smaller group, in a contained environment, and learn from the feedback that you're getting, as in what is working, what is not working, what could fall out, what could be the unintended consequences, and then use that to roll it out at a larger scale. So this also saves budgets, right? As in, you're not then spending the whole thing to roll out the product. You're first testing it in a contained environment.
So this covers this part. So what about some startups, like, not everything is in-house, they have vendors. What are the checks and balances startups can do in terms of vendors when it comes to ethics?
You're right. Another factor where budgets and funding becomes a challenge. You cannot always negotiate on the vendors, because sometimes you just have to work with the vendors you get, which is why, again, the governance frameworks will point you to what are the checks in the value chain that you can do to ensure that your vendor is credible. What are their data practices? What are their privacy and consent practices? Are they going... So, of course, you have to share data with third parties, but how are they going to process it? Do they have an annual report? Do they have a compliance system in place to do all this? If you take that much of due diligence from them, then you have done what you can. You cannot go and change their operating model, but at least you've done a due diligence on them. That is another direction that governance protocols let you do. And again, in the next year, you budget for a larger due diligence process.
Okay. So let's say the product is rolled out and AI is taking some decision, and the end user, let's talk about the financial sector. Somebody who has applied for a loan, and this person has applied for a loan and he got rejected, and AI has taken this decision. So how can these kind of things be prevented, or the governance can take?
So that's at the deployment and the monitoring stages, where transparency and explainability are key components of your governance structure. Again, transparency, explainability sound like big jargon words, but at the end of the day, it just means putting systems in so that the decisions of your AI can be read by either a data scientist through the algorithms, or by a policy person in simple language, or by a customer in plain answer to an FAQ kind of a thing. Various stakeholders, various different kinds of explainability, only trying to say this loan was rejected because of this process and this due diligence. Because often when loans are rejected, especially in the financial sector, because of the number of compliances there are, people don't know why it's rejected.
Correct, yeah.
So they may not even ask the questions, but they are entitled to knowing why it was rejected. So the transparency and explainability system takes care of that, develops trust also. Because even though I didn't know why, I got a note saying this is what happened, and wow, that's great, now I know. So I trust your brand a lot more.
Correct.
And at the same time, if I then think that it was rejected for a wrong reason, then I should have a recourse mechanism to kind of go back and say, can you, like an appeal.
Yeah, like reevaluation.
Can you reevaluate this process? I can.
So for that, the option should be there.
Yeah.
That's what you're saying.
Yeah.
So when the product is being built, this guidelines say that keep an option where people can also report if they feel something is not right.
Yeah.
Not like decision lilia, somebody is taken and AI is taken and there's no way.
Absolutely.
So, okay, what would be the next guideline? Like if oversights...
In the monitoring. So again, these are all not exhaustive. These are just one or two points I'm picking from the entire list.
Yeah.
So NIST is one framework that we speak about. There's the AI blind spot tool. India has NASSCOM's RI framework, which are all full of guidelines, which we can implement as and when. Nothing is 100% necessary from day one. Can implement slowly, but asking the right questions. The last stage is monitoring and measurement, because once your product is out there in the market, it's not over. Now your product starts learning from your customer inputs, how it's developing in the market. It's learning a new set of biases, probably. It's setting a new set of behavior on its own. So there should be a system to kind of read whether it's doing right or wrong. How could it improve? How could it stop some of the harms? And that is where an oversight mechanism comes in. It could be an internal oversight mechanism as well, and it also sometimes need an external oversight to free the product from companies' own management biases and things like that. So again, it could be a multi-stakeholder group that you can once in a while call. It could be your board, which is also diverse, hopefully, and then they can advise you with engineering experts, behavior experts, all other experts who can, AI strategists and ethicists who can review the product and its performance and then tell you these are the areas that you need improvement on.
Okay, that's amazing. So, I mean, just to summarize a few of the guidelines which you mentioned, for any startup founder who want to build a AI product, first, possibly try to have a diverse team if possible. For whatever representation you're building, try to have one of the representation member in your team, or at least take efforts to have a constant feedback from them. And geo-specific, location-specific data, because data is all AI is about. If you have the wrong data, then it's going to give you a wrong result. Then we're talking about choosing the right vendor. It's end of the day, the vendor's contribution in your product is also significant. So your customers are going to experience what the vendor quality is also. So we need to make sure that our vendors are having the right checks and balance so that they fit into our vision and we deliver a combined product. And then oversight mechanism after deployment, make sure that all the feedbacks that's coming in and we monitor and train, and also giving an option for the end customer who is the user to, they are entitled to know why a certain AI is behaving that way. Let's say their loan is rejected, that person should be informed, or he should have a option to report that, hey, something seems to be wrong or whatever. I think I have the right CIBIL score and everything, but yeah, why it's not getting approved. Okay, so that's interesting. So Nidhi, if somebody wants to get into this field in AI ethics, how is this field looking right now, and what are the opportunities?
Great question. So career options are many. Of course, for engineers and technical people who are already into things like ethical hacking or attending hackathons and events which allow them to see what the prospects in the AI strategy and AI ethics space is, there is a lot opening up right now, not just in India, but also globally. People who are studying abroad get a lot more perspective. There are lots of structured courses also in data and AI ethics and governance that are coming up in India as well. And for non-technical people, there is AI ethics and strategy roles. There is tech policy roles, because India is at this beautiful cusp of developing a lot of regulation suitable for our innovation ecosystem in the form of guidelines and things like that. So there's a lot of policy space roles opening up for youngsters as well.
Like for non-tech people, AI policy roles. For tech people, they can build tools for these AI frameworks, like tools for making sure that, let's say, deepfake detection,
age verification, identity verification, all these are areas.
So pretty much it's AI governance a welcoming field right now, because we need techies also to build such tools, and we also need policy makers and also people advocate to speak about it.
Yes, definitely. That's the kind of work that our organization does. We advocate for AI governance and responsible tech to all stakeholders. There are umpteen areas in AI ethics, AI strategy,
so
data
this
governance.
Is in terms of private sector and public sector also, there's a lot of opportunities.
Both private sector organizations and public sector, in the government as well as NGOs and civil society organizations like ours, academia and research organizations.
Correct.
Also.
I missed it. I forgot on that one. So Nidhi, if you can share some light on what is happening on AI governance from a global perspective, different countries.
So globally, different countries are tackling it in different ways. I think the most advanced conversation in the regulation and governance space so far has been in the EU with the AI governance EU AI Act having been announced and passed, but it's still in the implementation process. In India, the government has spoken about a light touch approach to regulation, but the conversation around AI governance guidelines is coming up, which is great. And I think India was the only country at the Paris AI Action Summit that spoke about developing AI that is for impact and that helps and benefits everyone in India. So going by that approach, I think there is a prospect for a lot more conversations in that space, which is where we met and we discussed. So, and I think Japan, Australia, UAE, Middle East, all of them are having a lot of specific structures that are contextual in their case. But it's still in the air. A lot of things are evolving. We're yet to see what works best, what won't work, but conversations are going on.
That's what is interesting is like even like how we met last month. Indian government is making sure that they take consultation from all sectors. They want startups, NGOs, academia. They're basically taking inputs from everyone. It's not like somebody sitting and making policy, but they're making sure that they ask the right stakeholders and getting inputs, and they're doing this.
That's definitely the right
That's a good approach.
Yeah,
Very
that's
good
what
approach.
we spoke about. One of the main systems of governance is making sure it's multi-stakeholder participation in policy making, which we are doing right. I'm hoping it continues that way and gets implemented in the right direction.
So thank you so much, Nidhi, for taking time and coming today. And it was a very insightful session. I'm sure that the audience, everyone enjoyed and got a lot of insights.
Thanks, Yousef. Always great speaking with you. Great conversation today. We're all scratching at the surface of how these things are evolving. I hope it helps most people in India.
So as we explored AI governance today, and if you'd like to know more about it, I would say go and follow India AI LinkedIn page, and you will know about the 7 pillars of India AI, and also know about the national AI projects that we have, Bhashini, Bharat Gen, and many more. So thanks for staying and watching this episode. Wish you have a great day, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks
Thanks all.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.